This learning is Nishmat Malka Bat Shlomo, and yes, my name is Shon Tanji. The introduction was already.
No, you do the intro.
Filling in for Hanan. We'll do some halachot today. We'll start off with the halachot of Netilat Yadayim, which is very relevant, obviously. And sometimes, people don't know these things. I didn't know these halachot myself, so this is the halachot specifically regarding speaking after washing hands. So the Shulchan Aruch actually surprisingly says that Me'ikara Din, the strict letter of the law, you're allowed to speak after washing your hands. You're just not allowed to have a long conversation that will cause you to forget to guard your hands from touching impure parts of your body or stuff like that, called hesach hadat. We don't want you to have hesach hadat, which is removal of the mindset of purity. But the Shulchan Aruch does say that it's better, it's good to be stringent, not to speak at all, even just a few words, which seems to be the accepted practice among most Jews, to be very stringent about not speaking at all. And it even says that you should try and be stringent, not even to wait too long, even in silence. But obviously, if you did speak just a few words, then you don't have to wash again. Obviously, definitely not with a bracha, for sure not. The only time you do need to make a bracha is if you had a long conversation with someone. Someone showed up and you went and had a conversation for, it says the halacha says for an hour or more. So I guess It's a very long conversation. That's when you need to wash again and make a bracha. There's a machlokah about that as well, but Rav Ovadia says, surprisingly, Rav Ovadia is always safek brachot lakel, sabal. But in this case, he says, if you have a long conversation, you wash your hands again with a bracha. But however, just any small few words, say hi to someone, little conversation is carried in allowed, obviously better not. But for sure, even l'chatchila, you're allowed to say things regarding the meal, like pass the salt or the bread, and you don't have to say it like nu and melach and all this funny. People get like very stringent about this. Even it's very strange because, like we said, be carried in, you're allowed to even speak. Right. So you're allowed to definitely say in a normal, polite manner to someone to bring or to help or whatever is needed. So that's the first halacha. Now, regarding speaking after hamotzi. Now, you're not allowed to speak after you say the bracha before you eat, obviously. And if one does speak, then we have to make a bracha again. Now, this includes even saying amen, or if you happen to hear kedusha or baruch hu, you're not allowed to say anything. But he does say, Rav Ovadia says that if someone did hear amen yeshmei rabbah or baruch hu or something like that after hamotzi before he even ate anything, b'di'evet, you don't have to make another bracha because it's a machloket and safek brachot la'akel. So someone said hamotzi or any other bracha for that matter, and mistakenly thought that he should answer the amen yeshmei rabbah or whatever else, then they shouldn't make another bracha. Now, what is the halacha regarding if you already started eating, put the food in your mouth, but didn't swallow yet? So the chatchila, you're not allowed to speak until you swallow, because that's really considered, eating means swallowing. However, b'di'evet, if one did speak just after putting it in the mouth and like starting to chew, then you don't have to make another bracha. Mishnah Berurah explains it's because there is some pleasure in just tasting the food, even if you haven't consumed it. So that the bracha can kind of go on to that, b'di'evet. Rav Ovadia does say that even l'chatchila, if one hears a davar shebekdusha, like a baruch hu, amen yeshmei rabbah, anything like that, then you should answer even if you haven't swallowed yet. So that's the difference. That when it comes to davar shebekdusha, then even just putting it into the mouth is already enough to answer. That is also regarding saying amen. If you hear someone else saying hamotzi, I've just put the piece of bread in my mouth, just started chewing, you can already say the chatchila amen according to Rav Ovadia. Again, I just want to make sure everyone knows this is halachot specifically for Rav Ovadia according to Sephardim. Every one of these things seem to be not so. Ashkenazim have different, but Rav Ovadia is quite sharp about his approach about safek brachot lakel. Another thing you're allowed to do, or at least b'di'evet, if you said something related to the meal. someone said hamotzi, before he began eating, he said either pass the salt or something related directly to the food, then you don't have to make another bracha. The Gemara's example of that is to give food to the animals, because we know you're not allowed to eat before you feed your own animals. So that is something related to the food. So if someone says, feed the chickens, after he said hamotzi, then he doesn't need to make a bracha because it's connected to the meal. And obviously this is only his own animal that a person has an obligation to feed. Now, this is an interesting question. I never knew this. He says, if people spoke, right? So you have the leader of the meal, the host making hamotzi, and he already ate. But the people being yotze, the bracha, they didn't eat yet, and they spoke before eating. Do they need to make another bracha or not? There's a big machlokah between the Rishonim and the Achronim. And Rav Adia says, halacha, you don't make a bracha. Even though you could say that if the reason they're being yotze is if they said the blessing, and the fact that he ate doesn't help them. But in a sense, because the bracha that he made was kind of made valid by his eating, so even the person that spoke can continue eating. But Rav Adia does say, lachatchila, a person should think the blessing in his head, like go through the blessing in thought. The same would be the other way around. If the person that made the blessing to be motzi, everyone else spoke before eating, does everyone else need to make a bracha? So again, same thing, safek brachot la'akel, because it's a machloket. The other people that didn't speak should not make a bracha. So even though these halachas are opposite, they kind of contradict each other. If you wouldn't have safek brachot la'akel, you would probably go with one way or another, but that's the halacha l'maseh. So now there comes a halacha regarding making a bracha on water. Now the Mishnah says you only make a shahakol on water when you drink water when one's thirsty. If someone's not thirsty, the example is if the Gemara says if you have a tablet, right? The Gemara says if you have a piece of meat stuck in your throat, you want to just wash it down, then you do not make a bracha because water doesn't have any flavor. It's only to quench thirst. Now, Ravadi says an interesting halacha. If someone's planned to go on a hike, or pre-ta'anit, and they're downing water so they have fluids in the body for later, you do not make a bracha on that. Even though it's to prevent future thirst, that's not considered thirst. And therefore, if someone's not currently thirsty, there's no bracha made. Okay, so then we'll move over to some halachot regarding wine. Now, the halacha is regarding wine. There's an interesting halacha called wine takes away the need for making a blessing on any other drink. Yain poter kol minei mashkin. Now again, this is another halacha that the Ashkenazi halacha is different to the Sephardi one. And the Rav Adia says the following. If a person is drinking wine in a kavua setting, it's like an official sit-down drinking wine like with people, or within a meal, or before a meal, like kiddush, then even if the drink was not on the table at all, or the drink he didn't even have in mind to drink any other drink, you do not need to make another bracha. However, if the wine is not being drunk in a fixed setting, you just grab a glass of wine, standing up, then you would need to have it had in mind to drink something else, or you would have to have the drinks in front of you on the table or on the area you're drinking in order for not to need to make a shakol. So that's an interesting distinction between, because I think some Ashkenazi halacha is that it only works if you're kavua. Like if you're sitting down, that's what gives wine its chashivut, is if you're sitting down and making it an official wine party. Now this is obviously true as well regarding Shabbat. This is very common. Shabbat morning you have a kiddush, you make a geffen on the wine, then you have a coffee or any other drink, you don't need to make a bracha. And the same is true after the meal. Someone did birkat hamazon on a kos of wine, and then you have like dessert with tea or whatever other drinks. you do not need to make a bracha on the drinks.
Even after Birkat Hamazon?
If the person that made hagefen,
Yeah.
or if everyone makes hagefen and has a little sip of the Birkat Hamazon kos, then they don't need to make shahakol on drinks.
But if they finish Birkat Hamazon, surely that is a new.
I'm saying if they do the Birkat Hamazon on a kos,
and
then they drink from that kos,
Yeah.
that would be a classic scenario.
Except that for Shalashus.
Right, shashus you don't drink it according to the Ashkenazim. Yeah. Now the same is true even if you did not make the blessing on your own. If you heard kiddush from someone else and you said amen and drank some of the wine, you don't need to make a shahakol. Even if you didn't make the blessing, you just were yotze shamei kaona. So nobody's sitting at the kiddush, but you must drink from the wine, right? Kiddush.
If you didn't drink from the wine.
If you didn't drink from the wine,
But
then
you
do
said
have
amen.
you do have to make a shahakol.
You do.
Right, because even though you were yotze kiddush, because kiddush is meikar, then you don't need to drink from the wine. It's only a chivuv mitzvah to drink from the kiddush wine. But regarding this halacha of not having to make shahakol on the drink, you have to have drunk at least a little bit of the wine or grape juice. This is true even if you drink less than a revi'at. Right, the Mishnah Berurah says you need to drink a revi'at, but Rav Ovadia says even if you drink just a little bit, little taste, and even if it's grape juice, you also do not need to make bracha. Now, what is the halacha regarding borei nefashot, the after blessing on the drink that you drank with the wine, with the hagefen including it? The halacha is you don't need to make borei nefashot on the drink because it's included both in the hagefen and in the al hagefen. The first blessing and the after blessing is included with the wine. And that's even if the wine was drank arai, not with, in a non-official fashion, that also includes it. Now, here comes a machloket, and therefore Rav Ovadia always says machloket, you don't make a bracha. What if you drank water before you drank the wine, and you made a shahakol on the drink, and now you drink wine, which in theory you wouldn't have to make shahakol if you drink more. So here as well, Rav Ovadia says halacha l'maaseh, you don't make a borei nefashot because the al hagefen that you're making on the wine includes even what you made a shahakol on before the wine. Now this is a big chiddush, right? Because that you didn't actually include the water in the hagefen.
It's kind of like having biscuit and then motzi and then doing Birkat Hamazon.
Right.
Covers you for the biscuit.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I guess, because, Birkat Hamazon is more of an inclusive bracha. Birkat Hamazon works differently to yayin and drinks, because Birkat Hamazon there's the idea of ikar and tafel, where everything you eat. But yeah, you're right, in the case where you ate the biscuit before, it doesn't work as tafel, but it just includes it because Birkat Hamazon is kind of a more general bracha, yeah. Interesting. And the same he says is true. The halacha is if someone's drinking wine and they decide to stop drinking wine, the end of the bottle, whatever it is, finished drinking, then you must make a bracha on the water or on the drink. But you would still include. You wouldn't need to make a borei nefashot. That is an interesting one because when you drank the wine. And when you came to drink the other drink, you would need to make a shahakol because you've ended the drinking of the wine. But because al hagefen includes borei nefashot, similar to the previous halacha, therefore you don't need to make borei nefashot because at the end of the day, al hagefen includes all types of drink, even if it wasn't included in the original bracha.
That's not intuitive. You would have thought that if you made al hagefen, even if the wine finished, that covered you for shahakol afterwards.
Again, if you regarding the first bracha?
Yeah, the first bracha.
Right, so that's a new halacha regarding that the wine only includes the shahakol if you're still in the process of drinking the wine.
Really?
Yeah, that's
In other words, even if there was more wine on the table, but you've decided
Right.
you've finished drinking,
you want to still drive after it,
then you'd have to say shahakol.
Yeah. If you're mesiach that from drinking more wine, and you've ended your wine party, so now it's as if even though you're not drinking wine anymore.
Interesting.
Now this is a very interesting halacha, which some people don't know, is that to make a borin nefashot or al hagefen on wine, you must drink a revi'it. Now a revi'it is around 85, 86 milliliters. I don't know how much that is in ounces.
I don't know.
Stick to
But
milliliters.
in terms of the glass, could you show us?
To be honest, I don't really know. I mean,
It's a mouthful, right? I mean,
revi'it is more than a mouthful. Mouthful is melolug mav. Melolug mav is enough for kiddush. But revi'it is more than that. Revi'it is the amount to make a bracha. I think it's like 3/4 of a plastic cup kind of thing.
3/4 of it.
Yeah, like between 2/3 and 3/4. How much is a plastic cup? I think it's 150. Anyone know?
Probably, yeah.
Chad Pami?
Yeah,
It's basically just over half, I guess, then.
yeah.
Maybe 2/3. Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking actually that I should do some measurements, but I should know myself. I feel. I just make sure to drink a lot.
Yeah.
So here he points out a very important halacha is that you shouldn't drink if you don't want to make an after blessing, and because you just want to have a little bit, like from kiddush or something. Then you shouldn't drink more than a kazayit, because there's a machloket if one drinks a kazayit, if he needs to make an after blessing. Is it a kazayit or a revi'it? Now revi'it is 3 kazayitim. So basically you have to make sure to not drink more than 25 mil. It's basically or under 25 or more than 85. Or 27. Depends, like there's different shita exactly where a kazayit is. But if you drink, you have to drink very little or drink enough for the kazayit, because otherwise you're entering that zone between 27 and 86 is a safek zone, which l'chatchila we shouldn't enter in. But obviously if someone did drink and there's no more, whatever, and they can't drink more, then you don't make a bracha because it's safek. Now, what if someone drinks before a meal? And now they drank a shiur, enough to make an after blessing before a meal, and they're now going to wash. Do you make an after blessing before you wash, or do you just rely on the Birkat Hamazon after?
Right.
So this is Ashkenazi halacha says you should make an after blessing, but Rav Ovadia halacha is safek brachot lahakel. Even though you have a shiur, now technically you should like kind of split it and end this meal with the after blessing and start with the washing. No, you don't. You include it with the Birkat Hamazon. And this is actually halacha mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, that there's a safek regarding making a bracha on water during a meal, because there's a question whether drink is included. Whether drink is included as a tafel to the bread, and Shulchan Aruch says that a Yerei Shamayim should make sure to drink before the meal, before you wash Ramotzi, take a little bit of a drink, and there shouldn't be water, because if you're not thirsty. Unless you're thirsty. If you're not thirsty, it has to be a sweet drink. And drink before, or make a shahakol before the meal. Or if you can make a shahakol on a sweet, or anything that you make a shahakol during the meal, to take away the safek of drinking during a meal. Because if you're already thirsty, basically, if the thirst didn't come because of the food, then that's not included in the hamotzi. Because it doesn't go together with bread. The general halacha is hamotzi includes whatever comes as an accompaniment to bread. And drinking to quench one's thirst doesn't necessarily come from the bread. It comes because the person's thirsty. So that's why it's a safek. So the halacha l'maaseh is that in regular person should just wash and drink and not think about it. But Shulchan Aruch says that Yerei Shamayim should, to be stringent according to all opinions, make sure to do a shahakol before washing, and Shulchan Aruch also says to make sure to drink shahakol less than a kazayit, so that you shouldn't come into a new safek of having had a shiur of drink, and then have a question of whether you should make an after blessing or rely on the Birkat Hamazon in the end. So this is connected to this halacha, but the final ruling is that even if you did drink. If one did drink before the meal or before the meal a full amount, you should not make a bracha.
The bracha, which one?
A bracha achrona. Yeah.
In any case, from a health point of view, it's good to drink before you eat.
Right.
So it's a good encouragement.
Like how much? Like a full amount? Or?
The body digests the liquid, if it's just liquid, very quickly. But if it's liquid with food, it's very difficult to digest. So, and the body needs liquid, so it's better to give the liquid before you give the food.
Interesting. So it kind of like it gets included in the food. So, like before Tanya, I guess it would be advisable to drink with food, as opposed to drink on its own, because then it would just go. It wouldn't stay. In theory.
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know. It sounds like you'd say otherwise.
Yeah, it's never good to drink and eat at the same time. That's what I'm saying. It clogs up the digestion. When you eat, I'm sure there's a halakha on it. When you eat, you shouldn't drink.
Rambam says that, yeah.
Yeah, but after you eat, half an hour after you eat, it's a good thing to drink.
Hashem should be merit to keep these things.
Amen.
So here we have halachot of hatov v'mitiv. This is interesting halachot which people generally don't know. You have some people that just stay away from the whole thing. I don't know, you just don't make it ever. And there is actually the Ashkenazi halachot are more stringent about this. But there's a whole bunch of things that you need to remember. I guess that's why people don't know.
Yeah.
So I wrote them down here, and hopefully we'll go through them in an orderly fashion.
Rav Hanania says he never does Tovameti because there's so many laws regarding it.
You don't remember them, yeah. It could be dangerous kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I think in most settings of a Shabbat meal, it shouldn't be a problem. Like if you go through the halachot, it doesn't seem so strict, especially according to the Sephardi. Ashkenazim have much more halachot. That's why I think in most Ashkenazi circles, they hardly ever do it. I've never seen anyone Ashkenazi do it. To be honest, I think when I came to Tsfat, like I've seen it way more. Like Tsfat is a lot to do. I guess they love to drink wine as well, so I don't know what's the... So let's see. He says as follows: Tov Amitiv is if you only, it has to be a Tov Amitiv, which means Hashem gives good and gives good to others, so to speak. He's good and gives good, so which indicates that the halacha is that you'd only do it with two people. If two people are drinking, or two or more. Now, two or more means that both have to have drank from the first wine and from the second wine. Now, this halacha, one important rule is that there has to be left over from the first wine. If the first bottle is finished, then the second wine, you don't make a tomativ in the second wine.
Really?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Another halacha is if you would need to be a different type of wine. It can't be the same vintage, the same bottle, the same year. However, if it's even if it's the same grape, like both Cabernet, if the Cabernet is from a different winery, it's also fine. Different years, also fine, as long as it's different. Now, this is actually a very interesting point, which I think most people are scared of, is that the only thing you need, according to Sephardim, is that you shouldn't know that it's worse, the second wine. Like if your first wine was like a 100 shekel bottle, and the second one was a bottom shelf 20 shekel bottle, then you don't make. But as long as it's at least on par, it doesn't have to be better.
It doesn't have
to be better. It just has to not be worse. And you don't even know that it has to be. As long as you don't know for sure that it's worse, then you can make. So that's the thing. It has to be. You have to know for. You have to make sure that the second bottle isn't worse. Now, what if you have two bottles of wine? This is an interesting one, and you know one of them is better than the other. Are you allowed to deliberately make the hagefen on the worst one, so that you can make hatov amitiv on the second one?
Nice question.
So the halacha is you're not allowed to. You're not even allowed to take off the better one off the table and make hagefen on the worst one, because the bracha has to be on the best wine you have. You don't want to make hagefen on the worst wine.
Right.
So, but if they're both kind of equal, the same range, then obviously you're allowed to make hagefen on either one and do hatov amitiv. Now this is also halacha is that according to Sephardim, it doesn't have to be off the table. Even if they're all on the table at the same time, you make a geffen on one, you could still open the next. Obviously, as long as the two people are still left for the first, you don't have to take it off the table.
What if they were both opened when you started the meal?
I don't think it makes a difference.
Does it?
Yeah.
It's not that you have to open it,
no.
to say.
As long as as the first one's left. But he does say lechatchila, you should take it off the table. You don't have to. Tchilah shouldn't be on the table. Some people say, Ashkenazim say that it has to have been only brought to the house afterwards. That kind of kills any option. Unless you have like a guest that's come late to a meal with a bottle of wine, that would be the only scenario it does have a mitiv. But as the Kunta Ravadia says, that it can be even on the table, then you could still make a tova mitiv in the second bottle. Now, a tova mitiv is also said on the third, fourth, fifth bottle, as long as it goes, as long as you have left over from the previous one.
As many as you want.
As many as you want, as long as they're not worse than the first. However, here they can't be on the table. Because if you make a tova mitiv on bottle number 2, and you have 3, 4, 5 on the table, then the tova mitiv goes on all of them. Hagefen, when you make the first hagefen blessing, you haven't yet made a tova mitiv, then they can be on the table. But when you make a tova mitiv, that includes all of the future ones if they're on the table. So that's an important distinction.
And what's the that some people cover the wine when you're doing a geffen, so that the bottle doesn't get blessed, so you can use it again. Have you heard of that?
You can use it again in what context?
I don't know, like when you pour for the geffen,
right?
Before you say the bracha, they always close the bottle, so that otherwise the bracha will automatically have gone on the
and then what will
on
happen?
the other one. I don't know.
I've never heard. No, sorry. Another thing that that has to be in order to make a tova mitiv is that all the bottles belong in partnership to everyone, meaning that everyone has permission to drink from all of them, as opposed to if you're in this meal where like people have under the table bottles, then you can't make a tova mitiv because there's no connection between the two people with the wine. So even if someone else brought the wine, but he puts it on the table and he's not controlling it, that's considered partnership because they're equally allowed to use it. That's another rule. So the interesting rule about the tova mitiv is that it has to be in middle of a meal, or just before the meal, like a pre-meal wine, like a aperitif wine or kiddush wine. If you make hagefen on a kiddush wine before the meal, and then you have another one after motzi, that counts. But if you're just sitting around drinking wine, that doesn't allow for tova mitiv, so it's only during a meal. Another halacha is according to the Sfaradim, you are not allowed to be yotza tova mitiv because of the fear that when you say amen, a person's in the middle of eating, they'll choke on by trying to say amen. So you must not make a public tova mitiv. Everyone has to make it on their own when they're ready to make the blessing. According to Ashkenazim, as long as you say savri maranan, like kind of get everyone's attention, then you can be motzi. This is a rule regarding any type of bracha during a meal. According to the Sfaradim, very strict. During a meal, everyone makes their own bracha. Also hagefen, even just hagefen during a meal, it mustn't be motzi.
You have to drink revius.
Yeah, it's just about the bracha. The bracha, usually by the Sfaradim, they're actually more stringent about including everyone in the bracha. Not Ashkenazim, sometimes you have people, everyone makes their own bracha. In the general Sephardi or even not you always want to do it everyone together, like with one guy being motzi everyone. But that's only pre-meal. During meal, on the contrary, it has to be everyone on their own. And the final tanai, the final condition to make a tova mitiv is that you haven't ended drinking wine. Like we said before, deciding to finish drinking, that's a cut-off point. And the same would be birkat hamazon. If you drink wine, make a birkat hamazon, and then you have a kos. You make the birkat hamazon on a glass of wine. That doesn't connect to the previous one because birkat hamazon is a cut-off point. So the tova mitiv has to be within one meal. Yeah. So actually, I think that's the whole time. So
the chiddush for me is that everyone should say it for themselves.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because it's contrary to the geffen at the beginning.
Right. During the meal, the Shulchan Aruch is very Bet Yosef is very strict about not being yotza. So just to summarize the main, let's see if I went through all of them here. So interesting point. If one drank the second wine and forgot to do a tova mitiv, it's like, hey, this is a new wine. I should have done tova mitiv. Can you take another glass and make a tova mitiv? Because it's a machloket, Ravadi says you shouldn't. It's a fake brachot. But if one insists and wants to make yesh lo midas smach, he can rely on the opinions that say you're allowed to. Maybe if he feels extra thankful to Hashem for this wine, he just his like soul is like, wow, I've got to do it too. Then you can rely on that. Grape juice also works. If you have grape juice and then wine, it's also considered tavomitiv. I didn't know that. I thought grape juice was out of the picture. So that's it. So just to summarize, it needs to be during a meal. Two people more drinking from both wines. There needs to be leftovers of the first wine. It needs to be a different type of grape, vintage, winery, year, etc. It needs to belong to both. And it has to be within one sitting and not be cut off by Birkat Hamazon or deciding to end. That's basically it. And yeah, you have to make the bracha yourself. According to this fire, everyone has to make their own bracha.
So just so you can clarify, say you have a guest and the guest brings a bottle of wine. Is there an issue with transfer of ownership or whatever to say the bracha on that wine? Or?
Is it on Shabbat?
Yeah.
Interesting. It's interesting. I mean, I think in general, when you bring a wine on Shabbat, you're not necessarily giving it as a gift as opposed to sharing it. And I think for this context, sharing is enough. It doesn't have to be ownership, rather equal accessibility kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, but interesting. Yeah, it's not necessarily actual financial partnership.
Mm-hmm.
What are the rules if you go to a wine, like I go to a winery, the wine tasting, and you're drinking wines, each one is probably less than a revius.
Right.
But the total is going to be more than a revius, and they also go up in quality usually. So what would the...
Right, so the revius isn't one of the conditions. It doesn't have to be a revius, even if you have a little bit of everyone. The condition would be, I guess, to be with someone else, have watched Hamotzi on the cheese and bread beforehand. What else? Yeah, I guess that would be it. I mean, I don't know if...
So if there's no motzi...
If there's no motzi, then you don't make it. It has to be during a meal. The only thing I'm thinking is though, if you don't really own the wine, if they're just giving you like a little cup, then it has to be, the wine has to be publicly shared between you. If they're pouring you a little bit at a time and you don't own the bottle, then you don't make a tomato. So I think maybe at wine tasting it wouldn't be relevant because of that reason. Okay. So now we're moving over to halachot regarding what kind of things you make a bracha during a meal. What time is it? A few more minutes?
11. Yeah, go.
I've got to leave already at 11:34, but yeah.
So
we'll do a few more things. Halacha regarding, also we spoke about drinking before a meal, to be yotze, the stringent opinion, right? To make a shahakol before a meal. So this is three ways of doing it. Either drinking before a meal a small amount of a liquid. Water if you're thirsty. If you're not thirsty, you can't drink water and make a bracha, so you drink any type of other juice. Or you can drink wine, because wine sorts out drinks. Or you could make a bracha on a sweet, or something that's not connected to the meal, in order to have this halacha of not drinking water during a meal without making a bracha on it. Now, what's the halacha about making a bracha on whiskey or beer during a meal? This is actually not known. I never knew this until someone once told me, "Well, you're not making a bracha on the whiskey?" I was like, "What do you mean? It's part of the meal." But apparently, whiskey is more of a either like a between like a palate cleanser of sorts or like a digestive type of thing. It's not necessarily part of the meal. So lots of opinions say you do make a bracha on whiskey during a meal, and in order to not have a bracha, some people like dip a little bread in it. I've seen like some rebbes like have it like first dip bread, have bread with whiskey, and then they drink it. So it's like kind of part of the bread. But Ravadi says halakha l'maaseh, because it's a machloket. Obviously, you don't make a bracha on whiskey or beer. Obviously, if you drank wine for kiddush or any other wine, there's no machloket, there's no question. But so there's a shaila about the whiskey. It's interesting that I think it's Ravadi's Sfadi approach of not saying because it's a machloket, therefore don't eat it. He says, eat it. When you want to eat it, eat it. what about the bracha? Oh, safek brachot. It's not like because it's safek you have to now withhold. You just continue your normal human life,
Yeah, I like
and the
that.
halacha,
I like
halacha
that.
will have to deal with it. Like
I like
safek
that.
brachot is like a psak. Don't make the bracha.
I like that.
Okay, so I think we'll end it here. Thank you very
Good.
much.
Thank you so much.
Chazak
Thank you
Baruch.
for standing in.